How are you? This is Oliver Fernandez with The Imperfect Entrepreneur. And today is the first podcast live on video, so let's roll, baby. I just got a call from one of my really good buddies, and we've done a lot of big things together. We're going to be doing a lot more big things together. And he's like, "Hey, Oliver, man, I'm having this struggle with like some investments. Can we walk through it? I need to get my mind right." He needed to get the furniture rearranged in his mind. And I'm like, "Yeah, let's not handle this tomorrow or the next day. Let's handle it now, right?" Before I get into that, I want to share with you my Lily story. And this past weekend, Lily was with our being taken care of by our babysitter, right? And this was the first time where she didn't actually take a nap. And I mean, it's been a while, probably at least 6 months, where I've been around her where she hadn't taken a nap. And she was literally, I got home at 4 and she was possessed. She was looking at me just like this, like, "Dad, what?" Very, very erratic. And it was kind of weird, but kind of cool at the same time. So I want to share that with you. All right, so my buddy called me and was asking me about the investments, right? And the investments he was asking me about were actually really interesting, right? You know, every investment is interesting. Every investment opportunity is interesting, right? But like the ones that we make money on are the ones we take action on. And I'm trying to figure out why he's not taking action on those investments. So we were walking through. I'm like, tell me more about it, right? So he told me about the first one, right? And the first one was a property that they were going to buy at this ski resort. And the reason why he liked the property is because in the winter, obviously everybody goes there for skiing, but then also in the summer they're actually packed because everybody goes to that mountain for hiking and walking through the trails and spending camping out with their family. So we were walking through all that, and I just told him, "Hey, let's stop first. Let's talk about the first investment we've ever made together." And he's like, "Okay." I was like, "How much money did we make?" He tells me how much money we made. I'm like, do you think that was a good investment?" He said, "Yes." So therefore, I was confirming that he has made good investments in the past, right? And when you've made good investments in the past, you're willing to take more opportunity or chance or risk in the future. Why? Because your past risk that you've taken actually paid off for you, right? So I wanted to remind him about that. And once he started thinking about it, he's like, "Yeah, you're right. We did make money in the past, right?" So now when you're talking about this new one, like, why aren't you going to take action on it? You made money in the past. Why are you not going to make money in the future? And my other question that I had for him about that property on the ski mountain was like, who's going to manage the operations? And he told me that the hotel that they buy these units at would manage the operations. So I said, pat on the back, because you can, when you start trying to chase two rabbits, you oftentimes will lose both, right? And I didn't want him to get distracted trying to chase this rabbit of like this condo building that he was trying to like rent out and make some passive income from, and all of a sudden he's dumping all this time and energy and effort into it. Let the management team manage the asset and get the tenants in there, change the sheets, do all the stuff that's going to be required for you to have a successful rental, right? And when he told me he already had that set up, I was like, pat on the back. You're doing the right thing, man. That was a smart move. I like that. So that deal, sounds pretty good. I typically like to invest in properties that are 100 plus units, right? And the reason why I like properties that are 100 plus units is because even if I lose 10 tenants, I'm still 90% occupied. Whereas if I have a property that's 1 unit, right, I lose that 1 tenant, and now I'm at 100% vacancy. And oftentimes why we think in our minds we have to we start small is because we think we're like taking less risk. But based off of the data that I just shared with you, we're actually end up taking more risk. Yes, the money size might be lower, but like it's not all my money that we use to go and buy these big properties. We do it together as a team of people. So we leverage all of our money to go buy these big properties, and then all of our money's in a safer position because we have 100 plus people that are paying the mortgage every day instead of relying on one person. So thinking that you're going small and trying to be safe and take less risk, you actually end up taking more risk. So I brought that to his attention. So then the second investment that he was telling me about was an investment in the Dominican Republic. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Dominican Republic. I don't really know much about the Dominican Republic. And, honestly, I've heard of investors making more internationally than they have made nationally. So, like, that's in the United States, right? And that's great for them, right? But, like, my next thought, right, is, dude, there's so many opportunities right in front of us. Why aren't we taking action on those? Why are we so quick to go run to the Dominican Republic? And then, the reason why he was like excited about the Dominican Republic was he's thinking about a long-term play, right? He's like, it'll be a long-term play for me and my kids. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like thinking, all right, so like if that's a long-term play, say in like 10 years, you buy this place now, and then in 10 years you go over there and you start spending a lot of time over there. The place is going to be outdated in 10 years. I think about the properties that I've renovated now, and like some of them are like coming up on 10 years, and I'm like, oh my God, I would never do that anymore. Like, that's so outdated. That's so ugly. And that's me. Like, get my wife in there, forget about it. It's like, she's like, no way. I would never spend time there, right? So like, I like his idea of having a place to spend time with his family, and that's very close to my heart, because we used to have a couple properties in Maine back where I grew up actually, and we would go there, and it seems like every time I would go there, I would like be worried about where I'm sleeping, what sheets and pillows and towels that I was going to be using while I was sleeping. Like it was basically a disaster. I had to worry about pots and pans and cooking food and all of this stuff. The best decision that we ever made was to sell those properties. And the reason why I had confidence in selling those properties is because when we still had those properties, my wife took me on a vacation to Maine for my birthday. And we went to this place called the Cliff House. And this place is absolutely remarkable. I didn't even know it was there. I mean, I grew up like 10, 15, 20 minutes away from this place. I didn't even know it was there, but it's absolutely remarkable. And they have just recently renovated it. And when we were there, like, I didn't have to worry about the sheets. I didn't have to worry about pillows. I didn't have to worry about towels. I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. And it was so relieving for me. And with that being such a relief for me, it was like, I can actually come back home and spend time with the people that I want to spend time with. Like, connect with old friends, go to the places that I want to go to, instead of having to do all these like repairs around the house and feeling, anxious about getting things done. So the best decision that I ever made was selling those properties in Maine. And when I wanted to go to Maine, I would go and stay at a hotel, right? And the hotel was gorgeous, like I was telling you. And the second part of that was when we stayed at that hotel, like, we started inviting my in-laws to come up with us. And one summer we got like the 2-bedroom suite, and this thing was awesome. I mean, it had 2 like huge bedrooms, and you overlooked the ocean, and like you had these like little like it was almost like these little, how do I explain it? It's like these little plants that were coming up, and you could see them in the window while you were sleeping, and then like the wind would hit, and then like these little things were like shaking, and it was just like so nostalgic, right, for me. And then obviously I had the feeling of being home, and it just felt so good. But when we got that room, like, we weren't actually in the room when my in-laws got to the property. So they checked into the room before us. Like, we had already gotten the room, but they went in without us to drop their luggage. And when they went into the room, they were like, "Oh, we went into the wrong room." The place was so nice that my in-laws, and they're very, very well off, right? Like, they're not by any means can't afford this, right? But like, they were like, "Oh my God, I think we opened the wrong room." Like, they had never experienced something like that. So like, when I think about my buddy buying that Dominican Republic place, like, he's not gonna buy the place he really wants, because like, the place he really wants is probably like $2, $3, $4, $5 million bucks. He's gonna buy some small little condo that's gonna be la la la, and then when he really goes there in 10 years, it's probably gonna be outdated. Where he can start going next year to places that he really freaking likes, right? that are amazing, and just pay whatever the rental price is for the week. And then when you're done, you wash your hands of it, you close the door, and you don't have to worry a thing about it until you want to go back. And you may not want to go back for another year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I mean, there's some places that I thought I wanted to go every year, and I don't want to. I went there once, and I'm good with it. Like, I'm good with never going back. So, like, that experience of enjoying the vacation and not having to own the place and having to, rent it out, and then being able to have the flexibility of changing it up and not having to be stuck to that place because you own it is extremely freeing. So those are the couple of investments that he was brought across my table, and that's what I explained to him, how I would handle those situations. And after those conversations, he's like, man, that's why I run these things by you, because I really appreciate your perspective on this stuff. It's definitely not how I'm thinking, and of course it's not how you're thinking. It's not. A lot of my thinking wasn't how I originally was thinking either, and then that's how you're getting good coaching, is because the thinking or the perspective that you're getting is totally contrary to what you've previously done. And why is that beneficial? Well, it's beneficial because for you to get a different result, you're going to have to take actions you've never taken before. Because every human being is already achieving at the highest level they can achieve. Right? Like, you don't have someone that's saying, oh, I can make $1 billion, but I'm just not going to. Like, you have people that say that, right? But they don't have a track record of doing that. They think they can do that, but they can't, right? Because if they could, they would go do it, right? And that's why the thinking or the perspective of someone that is totally contrary to what you're currently thinking is the right thinking, because it's going to help you get the different result than you're currently getting in your life. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. It doesn't sound right. And the reason why it doesn't sound right is because it's different than what you're currently doing. And when you start taking action on information that's different than what you're currently doing, it allows you to get a different result. I'm like, I paid over $1 million for private coaching and masterminds and being around the right group of people. Why? Because I wanted a different result. And that information that I got from being in those groups of people helped me get my life in a different direction. And once I got it in a different direction, I had to take action to keep it moving in that different direction. But I saw things a little bit differently. And that's all it takes. It's just a small, 2 millimeter difference, right? And then you start taking action on it. And then it spreads. It just spreads. And then 5 years later, 10 years later, the gap is getting bigger and bigger from your old thinking, from the old person that you used to be to where you currently are at now. And that's what I can't wait to happen for you. Once you start getting around the right information, start taking action on the right information, that same transformation will happen for you in your life. Go out there and continue to build your legacy.